Hello and welcome to The Middle. My name's Trent. So 2 years ago, I was at this party. And at this party, I met a girl in a big brown hat. Now, a little bit of context to my story. I moved to California, where I was at this party, because Katy Perry told me the girls out there were so much better. So, at this party, see this beautiful girl in the big brown hat. And I mean stunner. 10 out of 10. Woo-wee! Here's the catch. She's been dating this dude for 10 years, and that dude is a professional surfer. So, not looking good for me. Fast forward to tomorrow, she's giving birth to my baby. Yeah, true story. Well, partly true. She might not give birth tomorrow, but she is very pregnant and could potentially give birth tomorrow. So why do I tell you this? And how did I get the girl? Well, you'll just have to keep listening to figure that out. So 2 questions for you, middle. How does Trent get the girl? What do you think? I want to hear your answers. The second is, what does a person need in order to have healthy relationships? You guys had some sweet answers. I especially liked, I don't know, I haven't seen your answers yet, but I'm going to pick one at some point. Those are good and all, but I want to dive into awareness. Spoiler alert, boys, I didn't get the girl by being great at video games. Nope, that's not how I got her. But we'll just have to keep listening to find that out. Awareness is the key to healthy relationships. I want to dive into a story from one of my teachers to kind of break down why I believe awareness is the key to healthy relationships. So this is a story from my teacher, Jesus. It's recorded in the book of Matthew. Let's listen to what it says. But when the fancy pastors of Jesus' day silenced a different group of fancy pastors in Jesus' day, they gathered around him, and one of them, who was a lawyer, tested him with this question: "Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law?" And Jesus looked at him and said, "You shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself." On these 2 commandments depend all of the law and the prophets. So that's just a fancy way of Jesus saying, if you do these 2 things, that's all you need. You need to love God and love your neighbor. There's a ton to unpack here, but let's hone in on these words. Love your neighbor as yourself. So what Jesus does not mean is, well, I really like it when people just tell me what I want to hear, and so I'm going to just tell everyone what they want to hear and never tell the truth. Not what Jesus is meaning. The second thing that Jesus does not mean is, man, I really want everyone to buy me a pony, so I guess I have to buy everyone a pony. These words of Jesus are not so that we can be selfish. These words from Jesus are for us to put ourselves in the shoes of our neighbor. So Trent, how are you supposed to love your neighbor as yourself then? You've just told me all the things I shouldn't do with that. So what does he mean? Well, let's get into that. This is where awareness comes into play. When Jesus talks about loving your neighbor as yourself, he is asking us to understand what we would need if we were in the circumstances of our neighbor. This is awareness. So, question for you guys: when was a time where someone was aware of what you needed and stepped in to meet those needs? All right, so let's unpack awareness through the story that I started telling you about how I got the girl, okay? So 4 months after this party that I met the beautiful girl in the big brown hat, the stunner, the beautiful one, she shows up at my church. Boyfriend already dumped. Oh, I'm just a kid on Christmas, right? Like, I didn't have to do anything, I just had to wait. So, unlike Leroy Jenkins,
Percentage of survival.
Oh, it's a lot better than we usually do.
Alright, chums up.
Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy
I just waited and the hard work got done for me. What? What do you mean you waited some more? Well, I'll tell you what. Don't get me wrong. We'd go to the movies as a group. We would eat dinner together in large group settings. We would even play games together with like 7 other people. It wasn't my video game skills. It wasn't my intelligence. I wasn't trying to impress her. It was my love for others that wooed her heart. The ability to put myself in her shoes and see what she needed and serve her. But also, she watched over months and months of me do that, not just for her, but for everyone in our group, everyone at our church. I gave equal attention to everyone. She saw me ask good questions, and she saw me dive into caring for people where they were at. That's how I got the girl. This is the simple yet profound truth that Jesus is talking about. It's not about ourselves. It's not about what we want. We have to see the person next to us and their circumstances and ask the question, if I were going through what he or she is going through, what would I want someone to do for me? If I fail a test, how would I want someone to care for me? If I am stressed out because of school or my siblings are frustrating me, how would I want someone to step in and meet my needs there? If you're asking yourself, so Trent, why does this matter to me? That's the right question. Because you're right. Why are you going to take the word of me, some dude who's just talking about how he got this beautiful girl, or the words of Jesus, who you may or may not even believe he exists? Here's the reality. I used to be really good at video games, and I had tried to find my worth in them. And I was good enough that people would call my house from all over the world because the only way they could get a higher rank in the game is by beating me in a one-on-one match. And let me tell you something. There were maybe 5 people in the world that could at that time. I was your age. I was 13, 14. I was really good, but I was empty. It didn't matter. I tried finding my worth in being better at school and being better at sports, but I was still empty. It didn't matter. There was no life. It wasn't until I started following Jesus that I actually understand what it means to have true life. So that's why I'm here telling you this, because it does matter. And I don't take my word for it. If you legitimately try to follow Jesus, I promise you will experience the best life you'll ever have. You'll have more fulfillment. You'll have more peace. You'll have more joy. That's the beauty, is try it. Prove me wrong. I dare you. Because the reality is you're going to start following Jesus and you're going to realize I was right. And everyone wins. You'll have more joy and I get to be right, which is fun. So how do I demonstrate awareness, Trent? Well, here's my question for you guys. What ways, let's take it to your home. Maybe it's your parent, your sibling, or maybe it's a friend at school. What are some ways that you can be aware of what they need and step into their needs? Talk about that amongst yourselves. So here's the kicker. When Jesus talks about our neighbor in that verse, he says, love your neighbor as yourself. He doesn't just mean the people that are nice to us. He means everybody. There's a story that he tells, the same group of Pharisees that had asked him that question. It's a different part in Matthew, but I'm going to paraphrase it. Basically, the story goes like this. There was a man who was robbed and beat up on the side of the road. The people who attacked him left him there to die. A good kid, just plain old good kid. You probably know him. His name's probably Spencer in your class. He was walking down the road. He saw the man lying there, crossed on the other side because he didn't want to deal with it, and kept walking. Next, a man comes down the road. This time, it's a good Christian kid. They go to church on Sunday. He walks down the road. He sees the man lying there, and he too crosses to the other side of the road. He didn't want to get his hands dirty. Then a kid, the kid at school that smells bad, that no one likes, that sits alone at lunch, sees the guy laying on the road, and he has compassion for him. He picks him up and cleans off his wounds and takes him to the hospital. Jesus stops his story and looks straight at the pastors and says, who was this man's neighbor? And the teachers, the pastors answer, the one who had compassion on him. They're not even willing to say the smelly kid. They're not gonna even give him the dignity of that, but they can understand that in Jesus' story, the person who has compassion on other people and who cares for other people, who has awareness for other people, that's what it means to follow Jesus. That's what it means to be a neighbor. So when Jesus then turns it into a different story and says, love your neighbor, you now see the context that that's everybody. That's the smelly kid at school, because Jesus has already demonstrated how he is a neighbor. So this isn't an easy thing. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's the easiest thing to do. But what I will tell you is that when you step into loving your neighbor, that's everybody, as you would love yourself, you will experience so much more life. So my challenge for you is experience the good life. Follow Jesus with me, because I promise it'll be better than anything that you're doing now.